Welcome to Table Talk 6.5. We have an above average amount of insightful commentary on how we play the game this week, so it's a must listen. Give us feedback on Reddit, Instagram, YouTube, or send us an email at lateafternoongaming@gmail.com if there's anything you want us to talk about.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello.
I adjusted the sensitivity on my Discord settings, so shouldn't have any issues like we did the other day. Hopefully, maybe. We'll see.
Oh, did something exciting happen during?
So we did a session last night where, for some reason, like I don't know if my Discord settings changed or something was going on, but I kept cutting out when I was talking, which is when you're in the DM role, that's especially not great.
Yeah. So you have it has not been a common issue, but I would say, a couple of times a session, you have just sort of randomly dropped out for a second. Not on the recordings, like the recordings
Sure.
are fine, but on Discord, you just kind of like, and then I keep driving and
Yeah.
Well,
So I think what the issue was is the way I have my microphone set up, I turned the gain down because I was blowing it out at one point, and I think I hadn't done enough testing in Discord to make sure that I was still hitting that threshold. So I've adjusted it down so I barely have to make any noise at all, and it'll turn on.
the funny
editor's
thing
notes,
was,
make sure that the truncate silence doesn't get rid of that particular silence, otherwise that sentence will make no sense.
especially since you fucked it up and you didn't, you paused and then continued the sentence when you picked back up seconds later on the right word.
Nah, there could have been tons of things in the middle of there.
Sorry, did I cut out again? I'm missing what happened just now.
No,
He's saying that in my example, it sounds like there was just the recording got delayed instead of it being actual lost audio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which
Well-
I object to, and how dare you?
Well, I have to push that point because what was happening yesterday was comical because he would almost exclusively drop out after he had worked up to deliver a piece of information, and then as he was delivering that, he would drop out and then come back in as soon as it was over. Stuff along the lines of, and for this quest, I will award you gold pieces. Things like that. Where we'd like, what?
It's just part of the mystery.
How much? Tell us.
So anyway, hopefully resolved. Guess we'll find out. Just let me know if I drop off. But we'll go into the Ombudsman report. So during Table Talk last time at the end, we were making jokes about sponsorship, which we've done before. Last week it was talking about having Philip Morris be one of our sponsors. But something that I was thinking about as I was listening to it, you'll see these videos on YouTube pop up of some of the more famous brand sponsors that are popular on YouTube, like Raid Shadow Legends or Masterworks or whatever the one that you could buy like a title from Scotland or whatever. I forget what it's called, but those will pop up and people will make videos about them, about them being a scam or whether they're actually good or not, that kind of stuff. And so what made me curious was, if I did get some message from a sponsor, like let's say Raid Shadow Legends, what would you want to do if it was a serious ad offer? Would you say yes, we should do it, or would you want to be more critical of the people we support and make a short list of people we'd be willing to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is your actual thought on this?
I think where I draw the line is whether or not it's an actual scam. So, Philip Morris, for example, I'm down with that. If they wanted to sponsor us, I wouldn't have an issue with it. Not because I think they're cigarettes are good for you, but because I think it's crystal clear to everyone that they aren't. And so I don't think anything is being hidden there. That wouldn't have been true at one point. But now in 2023, I don't think anyone can seriously claim that they're being suckered by the cigarette industry. And so if they want to pay us to plug them, sure. if there was a no shit scam, then I wouldn't go there. Now, of course, I would prefer only to endorse products that I personally use, not just stuff I don't think is a scam, but things I actually like and use. But I'm pretty open. I'd have to play it case by case, and frankly, the amount of money matters here. Because depending on the amount of money, like, I might be inclined to try it myself and potentially change my mind on this stuff.
And then what I put in, and I stand by this, was as long as we're appropriately self-aware about it. Like, if it's a dumb product, but we make it clear that we're, like, we're selling out, guys. Like, I'm good with that.
So my understanding is most of those like ad deal kind of things, like, you don't have they don't give you the option of like, yeah, you don't need to seriously represent our product. You're expected to give an actual plug for it.
Yes, but I'm talking like there are people who, I'll use the Internet Historian as an example here, for Raid Shadow Legends, who are like, wow, what an amazing game. I really like this. This changed my life. And then there's him who's clearly having fun with it, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if I found out that he never played it. And he's just communicating the information in the way that he's obligated to do, but like, I don't get the impression that he's a massive Raid Shadow Legends fan. I get the impression that they're paying him money.
Yeah, I agree with that. So if it were a case where, back to that Philip Morris thing, like, if I had to pretend that I smoked cigarettes to push it, not gonna happen. If I can just say, hey, they sponsored us, we can read what they want us to read, and have some fun with it or something like that. Like, I don't know what these contracts look like, if it's pretty standard across the board, or if they do tend to sort of customize them to whoever they give the offer to. And maybe they say like, hey, you don't have to say that you use this, but you can't make fun of it. Maybe they say like, hey, we want you to indicate that this is something that you use. I don't know. So, that is a line that I draw. Like, I'm not going to pretend to use something I don't.
Well, I don't think you're allowed to. I think that there like force, at least on, well, maybe this is a YouTube law, regulation and not an actual law, but at least on YouTube, you are, when advertising, not allowed to say things that are false about the product in a way that could actually be taken seriously. So if you say like, I use this product, and you don't, that's actually like a problem.
Well, I'm pretty sure that you can do that on podcasts, because I definitely have friends who have like sponsorships for like, I don't know, the Quip toothbrush or whatever, or like one of the mattress things. And I was like, man, do you actually like have that? And he's like, no. And I mean, he has lots and lots of ads that are about how
now,
that toothbrush is
allowed,
awesome.
Or does it mean that he's just doing it?
No, it's allowed. You just read the script. Yeah, so it's like, man, let me tell you about how awesome this new like mattress I got out of a box was. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And they're like, I actually have no idea. I just read the script.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So the real question is, how much money would a cigarette company have to pay us for us to all start smoking cigarettes so we could honestly claim that we smoked them?
Oof. Yikes.
Well, what I've learned working in an office environment is that smoking is a great way to just get free breaks that nobody else gets.
Yeah, dude, you're way behind on that one.
So,
just walk outside and like pretend like you're gonna go smoke. Don't actually pick up smoking.
Well, and the farther away, the more remote they make the little smoking gazebo, the better this deal gets. Unless the weather's really shitty where you work.
Right, yeah. Just go to the basement.
I think
it's fine.
I think for me on this topic, like, my answer to my own question would be, like, because we're doing this as a hobby, and whatever dollar amount given our tiny audience would be very small. I would definitely want to have it only be products that I actually like. I don't like cigarettes or smoking or tobacco of any kind, so if it was Philip Morris, I wouldn't want to represent them. if they, for whatever reason, were offering a huge amount of money, then I'd probably change my mind. But assuming that they would be giving us money that was commensurate with the size of our audience, since it's just a hobby, I wouldn't want to rep anything that I didn't like personally believe in. That's where I stand on it. There's none of these are wrong answers. I thought it was an interesting point because, especially just seeing so many videos about all these sponsors being scams, or I watched a video the other day about like, what's up with Raid Shadow Legends? Like, I'm not sponsored by them. I want to play it. Is it fun? And the guy said it's like a nightmare. So maybe we should all give it a shot. I don't know. Well, Duncan stepped away for a second, and he kind of needs to be here for the rest of them.
Well, while we're waiting for him to get back, you, a while back, Shepard, mentioned that you'd gotten an air fryer. I also recently got an air fryer.
Oh god, I love air fryers.
It's pretty cool.
They're amazing.
I got the Ninja air fryer, of course, because if I need something and Ninja makes a version of it, then that's the one I'm going to buy.
Got to, no choice.
Yeah. But
yeah, the air fryer thing is interesting. I think people like make a bigger deal out of it than it is. Like, yeah, it's a cool little device and it's fast. But it's nothing special. There's nothing like magic that this thing does. You can achieve everything it does with other implements. It's just I think the thing that makes it good is it's like, because it's such a small apparatus, it can do everything very quickly, and that's what's nice.
Yep. Well, the one that I have also has a dehydrator function, which I haven't tried yet, but that's at least kind of interesting. I don't know how much use I'm going to get out of it, even if it works well, because that's not something that I have not often been sitting around going, man, I wish I had a dehydrator, you know?
Yeah, but then you're going to do it. You're going to love it. And then you're going to do it all the
maybe.
time.
Well, so the reason I got the air fryer is because I'm on a new diet that I'm trying out. It's called the potato diet.
What?
And it's a diet where you eat only potatoes.
Okay.
I was reading about this and I thought it sounded very funny. I ran into something, and I think this may just be a knowledge gap that I had. Like, probably everybody else already knew this and I just missed it somehow. But I'm heavier than I want to be. And I've been sort of oscillating within this 5-pound-ish range for a while. And it had always been clear to me that it was difficult to go below that weight. Like, if I went under by like putting the work in, I would be hungrier, I would be less energetic. Like, my body would clearly want to get back up into that range, and that much is obvious and everybody knows that. But recently I went on like a road trip and was eating out a lot more, and eating, like, not only was I eating more like restaurant food that's not necessarily as healthy as what I would make at home, but I was eating more food because I wanted to enjoy the restaurant food, and maybe not being as active as I normally would be because the weather ended up not supporting a lot of the stuff I wanted to do. So by the time I got to the end of this vacation, I was like 6 or 7 pounds above the high end of that normal range. And I got back and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to, like, I'm already heavier than I want to be. I would at least want to get back down to there. I'll have to really put some effort in here. And then it turns out I didn't have to do that at all. I just, like, very naturally over the next 2 weeks, without even trying, dropped back into that range and then stayed there.
Ugh.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, it seems like my body is really defending this range if I move out of it in either direction. Like, it's difficult to go below it, but it's also, if I go above it for some reason, incredibly easy to drop pounds until I get back into it. It's like, that's odd. I had not realized that. I wonder if that's just a me thing. So I did some Googling, and it looks like that's normal. I don't think it's like an official scientific term, but some people refer to it as the lipostat. Just like a, your body monitoring fat content and saying, nope, you're too high, nope, you're too low, and adjusting your energy levels and like how much you naturally want to fidget and such to get you back into that band. So I thought that's, interesting. I've never heard of that. I wonder if any research has been done on adjusting that set point. Because if there's like some reliable way to just make that number lower, weight loss becomes very easy, at least down to the new number. And then I found this thing called the potato diet, which apparently is very effective at adjusting that number. I'm not sure I believe it, but it's cheap to try and I should have results quickly. So I figure, why not at least give it a shot? And if it works, it works. But I'm very excited.
Can you describe the potato diet?
Yeah, what
You eat potatoes.
just
and nothing
potatoes.
else.
So
Yeah.
So I'm sure that but you're probably not supposed to prepare them anyway, right? Like it's or
Yeah,
can you
there's-
literally eat potato in any form and it doesn't matter?
There's debate on whether it's okay to like use a lot of oil. Really, the only big like thing that everybody puts out there is vitamin A is not it's like the one thing that potatoes don't have, I guess. That and like vitamin B12. So, except for sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes have vitamin A. So they just say make sure you take a multivitamin or include sweet potatoes. But other than that, you can and then very specifically avoid dairy. If you're gonna cheat, just make sure there's no dairy in what you cheat with. But, like roast your potatoes, make like mashed potatoes. I've seen a lot of people do like mashed potatoes using soy milk instead of normal milk or whatever. And it seems to work pretty well. I don't know, Slime Mold Time Mold, which is a fun blog, did a good article on it.
there's not very much protein in that, right?
There's a surprising amount of protein in it.
Really?
I guess, apparently. Because that was one of my concerns. But I get people who have been on it. Oh, the fire trucks are swinging by. People who have been on it said that they didn't have as much trouble as they expected on that front. So I'll pre-register my expectations. I'm giving it 10 to 20% chance that it actually works as stated. But it's so easy and cheap and quick to test that I figured I'd be crazy not to. But that's why I got the air fryer, is because it would make it easy to just do like quick little roasted potato chunks.
Huh.
Well, I hope that works out for you.
But yeah, it almost certainly will not, but it'll be funny. I'll report in next week on how it's going.
Awesome.
Yeah, when you've lost 35 pounds in the next week, we'll know.
Yeah, when I have wings on my arms because of all the loose skin that hasn't retracted yet.
There you go. My next thing on the Ombudsman report, so in the session, Simon had to do a sanity check. Excuse me. Simon had to do a sanity check after traveling back in time, which is presumably what happened when he touched the antenna and saw a dinosaur. So the sanity check was a 1d4. And something that I had said at the time was like, oh, wow, only a 1d4 or, something to that effect. And so it was something Duncan and I had talked about afterwards, where, sanity checks can have sort of any level of penalty, but we usually in this one have only had like 0 1d4 or 1 1d4 checks, which would mean, the number that comes before the roll is the number that you take if you fail this or succeed on the sand check. You can still lose sanity even if you succeed on a sand check sometimes. So something I was thinking about afterwards was, given that we're doing a longer campaign, is it more appropriate to do those smaller checks, kind of all the time, just to make it possible to make it to the end? Duncan, I was curious what your thoughts are.
Well, so I made a mistake. It should have been like probably a D8 or a D10 for that one. And when you pointed it out in the moment, I thought, whatever, we'll just roll with it for now and deal with it later. I think there is something to be said for being less aggressive with sand loss in a campaign. There are a lot of Delta Green one-shots that if you run them as written, will cause the character to lose a lot of their sanity in a single session. It's sometimes driving them through their breaking point in that session, which manifests some kind of psychological disorder and stuff like that. So now there's another component to this that we haven't really explored yet, which is there are ways to recover sanity. And the way this usually works in Delta Green is when you finish an investigation, or a scenario, I should say, you do something called downtime, which is exactly what it sounds like, where you have an opportunity to spend time with your family, or do a hobby, go on a vacation, see a psychiatrist, something like that. Something that gives you an opportunity to refine a skill, maybe recover some of that sanity, depending on what you're doing and how well you roll. And neither of you have lost enough sanity that, from an organic sort of storytelling standpoint, that we've gotten to there. We will. But I think what we'll do in this case is we'll come up with some kind of recurring thing. Like, Simon will. This will come back up. He'll think about it or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And we talked about a couple of possibilities for this offline, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, and I think all that's pretty fair. I think you had mentioned at one point that in one of the games you were playing with another group, one of their characters was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they would always use that person in their downtime to regain sand, because they didn't, given that this person was already part of their team, they weren't compromising OPSEC by talking through their issues with that person.
Well, it's more than that. Yeah. So this is a group that I'm a player in. If you go to a psychiatrist and you attempt to regain sanity, you try to psychologically heal by talking through whatever terrifying supernatural thing you were a part of, and you succeed, you hurt the psychiatrist. If you are able to convince them that this really happened, or at least make it seem very credible and it's something horrifying, then you feel better, but they feel worse. But in this case, yeah, it's one of the players that is the psychiatrist, and so you're not telling them anything they didn't already know. So yeah, it was this funny sort of cheat code that this group came up with. And this is just how Delta Green works. Characters gradually unravel. They get crazier and crazier. And I think an important thing that is often missing, though, from that experience is a lot of players look at that as a detriment. Even though, mechanically not that much changes for you. You may, as you pass through successive breaking points, develop more and more restrictive psychological disorders. But I had a character that I really enjoyed playing a while back, that he started out, he had his quirks, but he was relatively normal. But I made a point to play him more and more erratically and aggressively as his sanity deteriorated. And there were big life changes along the way from a story standpoint. There were a couple of things that we did that really alienated him from his friends and family. He was spending less and less time at home and more time on the road and on the run. And so by the end of it, he was extremely reactive. He would overreact. He was very violent. And I thought that was cool, was having an opportunity to play The Descent. But that sooner or later, these characters are going to get wiped out.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's cool, and that's I have lost a shockingly small amount of sanity so far. Again, we talked about it before, but Tim Barr's character has just put himself in way more situations where he would lose sanity than my character has at this point.
Yeah. Well, and all the more reason maybe to take an event like what happened when Simon touched the antenna and say, okay, since he has been, either attempting to wall himself off from this stuff or just honestly, he just hasn't perceived it that way. Now that something like this happens, should that hit him harder than, say, it would hit Tim?
Right. Yeah. Which I think the fair answer is yes.
Right. And in the in the cold light of day, when I'm not sort of improvising this stuff as we go, I would have hit you with a higher die roll, probably a D10.
Oh my god.
Because that should be just totally shocking, right?
Oh yeah, that should turn your whole world on its head.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
this should
I think like seeing somebody get shot can be like a 1d8 roll. I mean, like 1d10 isn't even that much bigger.
Well, and the seeing someone get shot thing, though, I think that's an example of fine for a one shot, not fine for a campaign. But I think I'm trying to express different things where, yes, and I say this as someone who doesn't watch people get shot. But I mean, undeniably a disturbing thing that causes a lot of people a lot of psychological harm. But we all understand that people get shot. It's definitely something that
It's not reality breaking. It's not good for the psyche.
Right. I mean, it's very ugly. It's disturbing, but we all understand on some level that that's a thing that happens. This isn't. Time travel isn't. And so to be put in a position where, 1 second your life is normal and the next second you're actually looking at a dinosaur. To Jack's point, that turns your world upside down. Like, everything is different now. Not to mention, whatever physiological shock may come along with that as a result of breathing in a strange atmosphere and traveling, whatever that process is. If I had it to do over again, I would have had you roll a bigger die at the time, because it would have made perfect sense for that event alone to give you a disorder.
Right.
But instead, we'll probably do the like nightmare angle. It's once the adrenaline of the day wears off and it sort of hits you in a way that you can't escape from it by chasing someone or distracting yourself. We can do that.
Yeah. No, I think that all makes sense. Next point I had was, Simon touching the antenna at all. So that was something that, it just seemed like a funny thing to do. So sort of like a metagaming standpoint of like, it would be funny if I had my character do that. I didn't think it was entirely inappropriate for my character to do that, so, I just ran with it. But I was curious, Jack, what were your thoughts when I had Simon do that? Not Tim's thoughts. What were you thinking?
I was glad you did. I was a little concerned initially because I didn't know if you were going to be able to get back. But once you did come back, I was glad that you had done it, because now Simon is potentially on the road to accepting that these things can happen and being a bit more accepting of it.
Sure. Okay.
That's something that, not like, I can't believe you've been doing this in the game, because I understand why you have like the skeptical character, but at some point the skeptic does have to become not a skeptic, or at least not
Sure.
as much of one.
Right.
And so it was nice to see the beginning of that road.
Yeah. And it made me think about the classic, like, the rogue that is always picking the other character's pockets, because you said something like, oh, why? And then I said, oh, it's because I'm a skeptic. There's sort of in character but out of character. And but I was thinking about how, like, there has to be some degree of metagaming a lot of times when you're playing these games, like, because if you're not metagaming at all, then a lot of times you're not going to be you don't want to do anything, you're not going to understand what's going on, or you're not going to want to work with some of the other characters, or whatever. There has to be a little bit of give. But there's got to be like lines somewhere, and this relates to the it's what my character would do, to using to like justify really annoying things that you're doing in the game. And I'm curious what people's thoughts are on those kinds of subjects, or like what experiences you've had on those fronts.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is definitely a table-to-table thing. I play in some games that are considerably more strategic, and so, I think that the players don't necessarily have their characters to do what someone in that position would do in real life. They're more strategic about it. And this is one of the reasons why I think, so Roland has played with us before. He played in, I think, one of the downtimes.
Shackles of Blood, yeah.
Is that Shackles of Blood? But I don't think he played in anything else with us. So he's a DG handler, and we run very different DG games. And one of the things that the two of us talk about a lot is he tends to give his players considerably more space to make decisions, whereas I tend to apply more like things like time pressure. So, because I think Delta Green at its best is desperate. You don't have quite enough time or enough information, and so there's a lot of uncertainty, and you're like, I think that Delta Green at its most fun is Scramble. And now there have definitely been, probably most of our time is not spent doing that, but we're laying the foundations for these tense scenes where stuff just starts happening pretty fast, and you have to react.
Right, like the end of the last episode with the agents.
Or with Housefire.
Right, yeah.
And I do think that's somewhat true to life. That's more descriptive of how emergencies really do play out. But yeah, which is not to say that makes a better game. But yeah, I think in Delta Green, if you allow everyone the time to talk through everything from a bunch of different angles and then execute a very well thought out plan, at the end of the day, I don't think that's the most fun in a game like this. I think being under the gun is really what the game's about, to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And there was a video I watched a long time ago about, it's about making video games, but the same point applies of a lot of times if you give people the freedom to do anything, then they will like over-plan and over-analyze the game to a point where it's no longer fun but easy to win. And the point that the game this guy was talking about was XCOM 2, because the game, like, it's a turn-based strategy game, and you'll have like 10 turns to finish a level, and so you have to like sprint through this thing and put your guys in danger. And if you get a mod or something that doubles the turn length, then it makes every mission super easy, but it takes 3 times as long. And most people ended up saying, during testing, that they didn't have as much fun when they had more freedom there, or more time to do everything. And I thought it was a really interesting point, because I know when I played XCOM 2, I felt the exact same way, where I was like, oh man, I wish these games were longer, because my guys keep dying, or things keep going poorly. But it turns out that's actually a lot more fun, and the risk makes it more fun, and the speed makes it more fun in the end.
I think there's a balance in that, because as long as you can actually realistically get through it, or have a fun time like dying, but if you like can't ever actually finish whatever the game is, then it's like I hate those games where it's so fast that you just keep failing. To me, I'd rather like slow down. But in this game, like you were talking, Duncan, the part of that is the journey of them going crazy, and that's fun.
Yeah, and I definitely agree about, and this is the bit that's not true to life, is you want to have something that's consistently achievable. Like, in order for it to be a game that feels like it's worth playing, there's some element of fairness to it, and so I definitely strive for that. But I think there's a balancing act that needs to be done between these sort of slow, regular day world building periods where player characters are eating breakfast, they're doing slow, methodical investigation and stuff like that, and then these higher tension, quick, the walls could fall in on me at any time scenes. Like, if you're going to have those at some point, and I think that you should, if the player characters want to stand in the middle of that room and have a 30-minute long conversation with each other about exactly which door to go out, you have to get in front of that. And so one of the things I'll do is pretty frequently is the two of you will be deliberating about something, and I'll say, as you're saying that, this happens, or before you can finish that sentence, this happens, just to indicate that like things are. I think in a lot of TTRPGs, the way GMs run them, it's almost as if the scene is being paused so the players can deliberate, and the
Talking
difference
is a
here.
free action. Talking is a free action, is the term that gets tossed around.
Yes, talking is a free action. That's it. Whereas no, I mean, like you're talking in character. This is happening on the same time scale as the game, and so you don't have time for that.
I think it is important, though, I think I don't remember if we talked about this on the podcast. I think we talked about it offline, but there is, like, it's a lot easier to, like, get information when you can actually see what's going on, as opposed to, doing theater of the mind. So you do have to be careful to make sure that you're not depriving them of information that they would understandably have just to, oh, hey, well, you guys are talking right now. It's like, yeah, we're trying to figure out, like, what this room looks like, which we could, instantly know if we were actually there.
That's a fair point, but there's usually a pretty clear difference between player characters talking to each other in character and players asking the GM questions about what they're seeing.
Yeah, no doubt. I just want to make clear that there is a distinction.
Oh, there totally is. And I mean, I don't... This is one of those things where I have a particular way I do it, and to some degree, explaining it is like a little bit of a fiction, because I do it in a way that I think works pretty consistently, but, now having to reverse engineer it so that I can talk about it, I don't know. Like, we do it this way because it works for us, but... Sure. I'm certainly not, like, managing stopwatches to determine, okay, here's how long it would take for this event to happen, and then here's how much time they spent in character versus out of character. But yeah, there's also something to be said for, I think one of the ways to make people feel like things are unfolding quickly is to keep putting new stuff in front of them, or to keep changing, what's going on in the scene. If you let people talk about something for too long, even if it's an exciting topic, like if it hasn't changed, they can become bored by it. Or part of making something urgent is keeping it not that well understood. So if, for example, you guys are in the field and you're talking to those, the FBI agent and the BLM agent, and then they abruptly walk away from you and they're like speed walking back to the trail. If we freeze it there and the two of you talk about what you're going to do, and I let you do that for like 10-15 minutes, this ceases to be a tense thing. It's too I'm only going to let you talk about it for a couple of minutes before I say, okay, like you're losing sight of them. They're on the trail now and they're walking away. Like I have to.
They just rounded the bend.
Right. I have to keep advancing it to give you some sense of urgency.
Which I think is a 100% appropriate thing to do. And that scene was fantastic.
Just make sure that really when you introduce new things, you say "Stitch incoming."
Stitch incoming.
No, it's only fair.
Yeah. My next point on here was I think it's really interesting what's going on in this campaign right now, like this thing that's happening right at the end of the last episode, where so normally when you're playing Delta Green, you are agents in the know of what your mission is and that there's something weird going on, as opposed to being two relative outsiders to anything paranormal who are getting introduced to it. So these two characters, the two agents that we've run into at this point, those two represent like an actual Delta Green team, whereas we are like the locals that they usually run afoul of. So it's really interesting to me that we're on the opposite side of the normal DG equation. But what I think is extra funny is that, in some sense, maybe this won't pan out, but it feels like we've kind of got them on the back foot at this point. Like we've got some dirt on them. It's somewhat clear to Simon that these guys are not playing by the rules, and he has no reason to believe that they have a good reason for doing that. Not at this point. But so any like tricks that we pull on them is something that anytime we play Delta Green in the future, Duncan can then do the exact same thing to us as a Delta Green agent and say, well, you guys did it when you were, when you were on the other side, like this occurred to you to do, so why wouldn't it occur to them? Which I think is a really, really funny situation.
That's why Tim is, spoiler, going to kill himself this episode.
Oh, yeah. yeah. Last time, the law enforcement guys, they just killed themselves.
Yeah.
I did think this would be a funny thing to play with. The introduction of what would normally be player characters as non-player characters. One of the things that's funny about it is to illustrate how difficult what they're trying to do is.
Right, to anyone on the other side who's taking their job seriously, like it usually, the stories fall apart pretty quick.
Right. So it's sort of a, turning the mirror around, like pointing out how to any players who were wondering if, you're being unreasonable by scrutinizing the excuses I'm making this much, or looking at my badge that closely, or anything like, look what's happening to these poor guys.
Right, yeah, which is absolutely what would really happen, especially because, like, and this is maybe a bit of a stereotype, but, like, when the feds come in and just, like, take over some case suddenly, like, local law enforcement, is probably going to, unless there's some reason why they would want the feds to come in, it's probably going to be really butthurt about that, and, like, if it's not obvious that these guys are doing the right thing, they're probably going to look into it.
I did really like their excuse of, well, you own the land, but since the body was buried, it's federal because of mineral rights.
Yeah. Well, that's just some classic, like, fast talk.
It just made me laugh on the re-listen.
I think that's so in a lot of older gaming systems, and probably some current ones as well, instead of, like, deception, a lot of times there would be, like, bluff or fast talk would be the name of the skill, which I think is a lot more descriptive and a very funny way of putting it, because half the time when you're doing a deception, it's not just like a one statement thing that is actually just a lie.
No, you're just bullshitting them.
You're like, like trying to throw so much at them that, like, they can't decipher fact from fiction, which is much more of a fast talk than anything else. And I thought that, I thought the agent's excuse is really funny. Great scene overall. I thought it was awesome. And then I didn't put this in my text version of this, but keen listeners may have noticed that we weren't always entirely sure what had happened in, like, in the previous episode, like where we had left off. Had the bodies been exhumed yet or anything like that. And so TTRPGs in general are, it's a note-taking hobby in a lot of ways, where players usually have, like, a notebook and you're writing stuff down, or you're typing things out in a text document, whatever. But players generally are supposed to be, like, writing things down, and we don't do that. Or I know I don't.
I don't. Not anymore. Not because we're recording it.
You're saying not because we're recording it?
Sorry, I don't do it because we're recording it, and I almost always, emphasis on almost, re-listen to that episode right before we record the next one. Mm-hmm. And then this time I didn't, and I did, but I skipped over the crucial part.
Sure. Yeah, and so I think that what we're doing works really well right now. I also don't take notes because I listen to the podcast. However, this system, which generally works very well, and I think we usually have a very good memory of what's going on, it totally falls apart when none of us listen to the episode, which is or don't listen to it recently enough to be able to recall everything, like what happened last time, which I thought was just very funny, because, I think we are in a somewhat privileged position of being able to listen with great clarity to our previous sessions. Most people can't do that. But we have to actually be consistent about it, or else we run into, in this case, relatively minor issues. But a funny situation, I think. But that's it. That's all I had for the Ombudsman report.
Well, okay, so this is something that we tried deliberately, which was turning the Ombudsman report into a proper conversation. I think it was a success. I definitely prefer this over the older sort of like rapid fire list format.
Right. Yeah, I picked the topics this time because there were a couple, I think, administrative trivia, people call it.
Who calls it that?
They, them.
I've
everyone.
never heard that. Yeah.
You've never heard it?
People.
Well, anyway,
No,
it's...
I don't believe that.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, point is, I did skip over those, and I wanted to make sure they were topics that I thought were actually, discussion points, as opposed to me just being preachy about something.
I do think this is a better format just because, and I was thinking about this the other day, previously, if somebody listened to a table talk and they just, picked one at random, the first, sometimes just a couple of minutes, but sometimes the first, good long while of the episode would be referencing something that they had never heard, if this is the first thing they'd listened to.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times, it just wasn't even funny. That's not my purpose to only be funny, but if it's a reference to something, it needs to stand by itself, either as a funny joke or as something informative or whatever. And I wasn't hitting any of these things; it was just boring.
That's why in the future, what you should do is every single table talk you release should have the first table talk is the first table talk, and then when you record the second one, you just attach the second table talk to the first table talk's audio file and upload that whole thing. And then the third table talk you upload, you attach the third one to the whole audio file, so it gets longer every time. It's the full series, and then everybody always has the context.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. One of the things that is nice about uploading to YouTube for this season is I have multiple playlists. So the way the podcasts upload, I can only separate them into seasons. So, as far as I know, in most podcasting apps, maybe you can create a playlist or something like that. But if you wanted to just listen to all of the table talks and nothing else, or all of the sessions and nothing else, there's no really good way to do that. But on YouTube, obviously playlists are a thing. So I've got 3 playlists for this season, which I guess once I start putting out downtimes, I'll have a couple more. But it's like the sessions, the table talks, and then the sessions and table talks. And so that makes it a little easier to just flip through the, whichever one you're interested in, which I wish you could do with a podcast, but whatever.
I had some, very interesting topic to throw on here, and I forgot it.
Yeah. Well, so last time I ran a downtime session in D&D 5th edition for some of our players, and I'm planning on releasing it when we've got a break week coming up here. But what would be nice is if, because we're going to have a lot of weeks where at least one of us isn't here, if we could get a couple more people doing some downtime stuff. Like I said, I plan on running another one this weekend.
Yeah.
If other people could run some stuff and just record it and then drop it where I can find it, then even if I'm not available to do a session, I should still be able to edit them and publish them, just so that we don't have too many breaks. And I mean, most people I think agree with this. The downtimes are fun to listen to because they're just they're kind of kooky, and they I don't know, they tend to be pretty funny.
And they're low commitment.
Super low commitment, yeah.
Well, and there's the new segment that we've been talking about called How Was Your Day with Duncan, where I every day I come home and I record a several hours long explanation of what I did with my day and how I felt about it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. With pauses so you can talk about your day too, and I'll say uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. I'm
Right.
sorry to hear about that.
Yeah. Tell me more. I'm very curious to hear.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty great.
Jesse,
Yeah,
you have anything exciting to contribute?
yeah, we're kind of slow right now.
Yeah.
I already talked about it, dude. I already hit you with the potato diet. I feel like that's some next level stuff right there.
That's true. I mean, because I technically I've been fasting the entire time we've been recording this session.
Oh, wow.
I do a bit of intermittent fasting. I always fast between meals. And
I did see a meme the other day about some guy who had done. It was, I think it was like a Texas senator or something. He had done an 8-hour hunger strike or something
saw
like that.
What?
That's like, is that
He
real?
skipped lunch.
my heart went out to the guy. But yeah, anyway, I'm on the potato diet now too.
Nope, I'm not doing that.
I just switched when you told me about it.
But imagine, again, low confidence that it
Yeah,
works.
what if it
but
works?
Imagine if it does. How funny would that be?
I'm gonna be furious.
Yeah, and we'll
I'm gonna
find
be
out.
so mad.
I'm gonna go to
Yeah,
the
but it was
grocery
that
store
easy
right
this whole
after
time.
this. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, not being able to put butter on the potatoes does make it harder.
Well, but you could put margarine, right?
Probably. I don't know.
Probably. That's a good point. And then being able to have sweet potatoes definitely makes it better.
Never been a big sweet potato fan.
I
Man,
recently discovered sweet potato fries. I'd always skipped over that in favor of normal fries. I think I vastly prefer sweet potato fries.
but let me throw something at you that I mean, now you're in a position to enjoy this, Jack. If you take a sweet potato, and I can't remember the timing or the temperature here, but all you do to prepare this is you take a sweet potato, punch some holes in it with a fork on the outside, and then put it like on a pan in the oven and just cook it and pull it out.
A baked sweet potato.
Cut it open and just put a little bit of salt on it. Just crack it in half and like scoop it out with a spoon and eat it. Fantastic.
Might have to go for it.
It's all you need is just the sweet potato and a little bit of salt.
You were like cooking this up to be like some like really crazy like, guys, check out my new find, and then it's just a baked sweet potato.
I thought it was leading to something more.
You guys you don't get it, because I know for either of you to eat something, it's got to have like 20 different ingredients and be this big production. And I'm telling you that a sweet potato all by itself is more than enough.
I mean, it is pretty great.
Duncan really blew my mind one time. I was visiting him, and he was like, "Yo, check this out. You're not gonna believe that it's good, but trust me, it is." And he gave me a black bean burger patty on a blueberry muffin.
Blueberry bagel.
And sorry, yeah, bagel. And I don't think I ever recovered from that. I'll be honest, Duncan. I don't think you have functioning taste buds.
Yeah, so
You're right. I don't believe it. This sucks.
it was for the uninitiated, perhaps a flavor overload. But I stand by it. Spicy black bean burger, cheddar cheese on a toasted blueberry bagel. It is a powerful, dare I say, transcendent experience.
I admit that I'm not curious at all about that, and my inclination is that Jack's assessment is probably close to what mine would be were I ever to experience this, which I won't.
Yeah, so
I'm definitely
kind of
not gonna try that. No.
I'm sort of a food vulture.
Okay.
I tend to. I don't really have regular things. I eat what I find, and sometimes that means making unorthodox combinations, and every once in a while, some magic happens. You realize that you've come up with some kind of alchemical formula, that's exactly what happened there. And Jack wasn't in a position to appreciate it, and that's okay.
Yeah. Probably, the kind of mental state he was at the time didn't support it, maybe.
Right. I mean, I think this would it's like putting our podcast in front of a small child. Like they're just not equipped to appreciate it.
That makes sense.
They need
That
to
makes
mature
sense.
somewhat.
If anyone out there in the audience does have kids, please have them listen to our podcast. Any friends, family, coworkers, church mates, whatever.
Hi, kids.
Yeah, hi kids. Hi church mates.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Have you ever smoked a cigarette before?
Yeah. Now, really got to figure out how to. We actually, this is something that we had we started talking about the other day, and I think we said we were going to leave it for table talk. Well, here we are. So, advertising or spreading the word for our podcast. What are people's thoughts?
Open to it.
Yeah,
Sure.
already doing it. Telling everybody.
I have
Okay,
no
so-
strong feelings either way.
So we're going for a word of mouth approach. So yeah, I
prefer
I'm glad we're all
grassroots.
on board with it. What's the technique?
So, I mean, I actually am genuinely open to like wearing stuff or basically personally advertising. So, understanding that that's a small scale effort and is not a replacement for like proper advertising on the internet in some way. But I think simple stuff like stickers, and yeah, like a combination of things like stickers and word of mouth is not bad. And then we have a friend, Caboose, who has an Etsy store where he's shipping stuff, putting stickers in there. Not a bad idea. Also small, but fun. We've tried the Reddit ad thing, and that really didn't work very well. Which doesn't mean it isn't worth trying again, but I'm open to traditional routes like that as well. We had also discussed the prospect of recording some kind of audio advertisement to play on other podcasts. I really don't know anything about that, and I don't know what we would put in an audio ad.
Yeah, I don't either. That's something I was thinking about because it's available on Simplecast through some service that they partner with. And yeah, I was thinking about that of like if we did do an audio ad, like what do we put it in? Like I'm picturing like
Just make it like shock jock style.
totally misrepresenting our product.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that because I really don't know. It's you can't hear it in the recording, but Duggan just hit us with a lot of air horns. But yeah, I remember like listening to the radio as a kid. You know, there would be commercials for TV shows that were going to be, new episode of 2.5 Men that night or whatever, and they would be playing some audio clips from the episode, like tune in tonight at 8/7 Central.
I just remember hearing a lot about Jello brand gelatin.
Yeah, that a little further back, but like I don't know that we don't have any. I don't think the zingers we have are quite good enough to stand alone as something that as a line all by itself would make people want to listen to our podcast.
No, I think we're kind of firmly in like your friend that's funny but probably shouldn't do stand up.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it.
where it's our territory.
Right. And so I don't think that the audio format, despite the fact that, we are an audio product, I just don't think that that's good. Because the only other option is then describing it.
If someone else is listening to the radio and we're playing that on the radio, if they're listening to the radio, they probably don't listen to podcasts.
Well, that's I'm not saying it would be on the radio. It would be on other people's podcasts.
Sure. I listen to a fair amount of podcasts. Actually, maybe that's not fair to say. Maybe I just listen to a few podcasts a lot. I don't know what average looks like here, but I think I only listen to one podcast that has recorded ads in it. I listen to other podcasts that have ad reads.
Yeah, I actually only started hearing recorded ads on a podcast like within the last year or so, and only on I think one of the podcasts.
And
that
I gotta
listen
tell
to.
you, they're fucking annoying.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no doubt at all.
Now,
that's
part of it
that's
is
the other
it's
reason
like
why I wouldn't want to
Chumba
do it.
Casino or whatever it's called. It's not just the ads that are annoying; it's the things that are being advertised.
Yeah.
Speaking of ads and extremely annoying, Shepard, you recently, earlier in this, we're talking about, or maybe it was the last table talk. I was listening to that earlier. You mentioned Critical Role at some point. I did try to get into Critical Role during COVID because I was like, this is there's a lot of content here. This is something that if I do get into it, it'll last for a while. And good God, it's like the first 20 minutes of every episode, it seems like, are just them reading ads, talking about merchandise. Like, the actual content takes so long to get to.
Yeah, so in fairness, like one of their shticks, because they're all voice actors. So I know for like their campaign 2, they would always do Sam Riegel would always do like a bit for their ad read. That was like their deal with, I think it was for D&D Beyond usually. Like that was the bit that they would do, is like it'd be this long drawn out thing that he prepared every week. So if you're in on that joke and you find that funny, then that's part of the show. It is, what did Sam Riegel come up with this week for the ad read? But so yeah, if that doesn't get you though, then yeah, it's a huge pain to get through, where you're like, guys, let's get to the story. And then again, because they have a big audience, I think Laura Bailey was the one who's in charge of like the merch stuff. And so she was always very excited to say, hey, these are the new shirts we have, or new dice, or whatever. And for most people who are fans, that was really exciting because they loved getting all that stuff and they like supporting these guys. But again, same effect. If you don't care about that, or you're not going to buy their merch, or it's an old episode and you're like, well, that stuff doesn't exist anymore, then that loses all of its positives and retains all of its negatives.
Well, I want to echo what Jack is saying, because I attempted years ago to get into it more than once, and that scared me off every time.
It would be like if we didn't have separate things for Table Talk. It would be like if every single session had like an indeterminate amount of just riffing.
Yeah.
Before we got into the session.
It's not just that, though.
Yeah.
And this is a taste thing, but I just thought it was annoying. It wasn't just like that I was anxious to get to the meat of the episode. It's that I thought they were being annoying.
So I agree with that, but I'll come to their defense on this. I started to really enjoy that part of it once I watched it more, and I found I think it was called All Work No Play. So Sam Riegel and Liam O'Brien, who are two of the players in that game, they had started a podcast like a really long time ago, which predates Critical Role, where they were just talking about being voice actors in Hollywood and, just like the struggles that come with that. And it was actually a very funny podcast that they would put out like once every like 6 months or something. And I found this after I had found Critical Role, and listening to those two talk, and like, building that parasocial relationship like we do as podcast listeners, like made me start to appreciate Sam Riegel more as a funny person. And then I started to really like the ad read stuff more, because I had a better sense of what his sense of humor was. And you can tell that it's pretty big in their fandom, because you can find all sorts of like Sam Riegel ad read compilations on YouTube and stuff like that. Like it was a big thing for their fans. So
yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like I Critical Role is popular for a reason, and I know that there's something to it, and it's just not for me.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt.
But I'm sure I know I'm not the only one, because Jack has said it as well. Like, the way that is set up, I appreciate that our content is that we made the move to separate it out, because I have a couple of friends who listen, which is kind of strange in and of itself, but some of them listen to the episodes and have no interest in the table talks. Some of them are the other way, or they'll listen to both, but they'll re-listen to the table talks and they don't re-listen to the episodes. It's good to. It's a convenient division, I think.
No, I agree, and I know when we started, like on the start of session 2, I think, we did have a bit of like a 10-minute or 15-minute little intro thing where we did not quite a table talk, but something like that. And then shortly thereafter, someone made the suggestion of, hey, we should have a separate thing. I think it was probably you, Duncan.
It's a good idea, so probably.
Yeah, and naming it Table Talk.
Well, the other piece that I really like is how you split it out in Instagram into little chunks, because I like to take those and send them to people when I think that they're funny, and be like, listen to this shit, it's awesome. And so that's the way that I actually tell the people about the podcast is interesting. Is on Instagram, because there's a lot of I don't know if they're separately podcasters or what, but they'll have all their reels there and people share back and forth those. So that's a way that I tell people about it usually. Or I just shove art in their face, like, look at this cool stuff that I did.
Well, I think we've arrived at the real root of the first topic, which was, what would your rules be for ads? I think this is it for me. It's they can't be annoying.
Yeah.
Everything else is secondary to that. I just couldn't. I like what we do enough, and I'm proud enough of it, that I couldn't bear to tarnish it with, like, something that I thought made it annoying.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, and Jesse, I think that's a great point on the Instagram thing. I think that is probably the best way to spread it, assuming you can get somebody to sit down and listen to a 4 to 6 minute snippet of what we're doing. Then, because at the end of the day, that's going to help determine whether someone is going to like it. More than, most any other advertising method would.
Right.
It just requires a little more deliberation and attention.
Well, and the Matt Ball thing was perfect. Yeah, because I said that to a bunch of people. They're like, oh, that's hilarious. I want to listen to the rest of the episode. And so that was a good way to kind of reel some people in.
Which is funny, because I thought that was possibly the least funny of all of the Instagram reels that I had made. Not that it was bad, I just didn't think it was nearly as good as the rest of them.
Everybody loves Matt Ball. Even if they don't know what it is.
No, because I think, again, I cherry pick some of the funniest stuff that we do for Instagram, given that it can stand by itself for 5 minutes or so. So naturally, that is going to represent, generally speaking, the best of whatever happened that day. But yeah. Now I don't. I checked the stats the other day on Instagram, or the insights, or whatever it's called, and it didn't seem like we were getting a lot of views. I think most of them had an average of like 7 watches or something like that.
No, well, I think Elon Musk has been suppressing our posts.
For sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think we've been shadow banned. Yeah.
Do we have
Shadow
a
banned from the
Threads?
product he doesn't own?
Do we have a Threads account?
Yeah.
Well, we're getting on Truth Social
Yeah.
and Threads because Mark Zuckerberg is going to crush Elon in that cage fighting match coming up.
So stupid.
That whole situation was
And after that, Threads is going to take
amazing.
off.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it takes a bit of consistent sort of sharing. And once you've got more than just me sending things, then I think you'll have better engagement. But probably on new, I don't know. I'm not sure how far down people would scroll on that, or if they would use that as a way to then jump over to the podcast.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's one of the good things about where we're at right now is that at this point we've got a big library. So like people, it's good and bad, but the good part about it is people who now come to the podcast, if they liked what they saw on Instagram and then came over and saw we only had like 3 podcasts, that's like, well, maybe I'll listen to these, maybe I won't, but there's just not a lot here.
Right.
But you go to our podcast page and there's a lot to listen to. The downside being it might be daunting.
Right.
But I think we're in a good position now where we've been doing it for a while. We figured out how to do it in a way that works for us. Yeah, the audio quality and the production is much better now than it was on episode 1.
No doubt.
We've divvied up the episode times like we've talked about. So, we have a couple of things going on. We have we have main episodes for our campaign. We have downtime. We have table talk. We've gotten some processes that work a little better, like establishing lists of topics for table talk. We have more people involved. And crucially, I think we're on a second season now. So, I thought we had good episodes at the beginning of Curse of Strahd, but I don't think we had consistently good episodes in the way that we do with Golden River Underground.
Yeah,
where
agreed.
Each one has been strong, and I've been happy with it. There were ones in Curse of Strahd where I thought, okay, that one wasn't that great. So this is there's plenty there. It's a good time to get in.
Yeah, I know for Curse of Strahd, we did I don't remember, what did we end on, 22 or 23? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Let me look. Okay, so we recorded a session 24. It was another villain session. And in between the time when we recorded that and when we decided that we weren't going to continue that campaign, like, I listened to it, and it honestly just wasn't very good. I don't know what it was. I think, like, it was just like, it's just one of those sessions that just wasn't as good. And
I mean, towards the end of our run, we were playing less and less. And, I mean, Curse of Strahd was... I don't know. I mean, I'll admit that I started to lose faith towards the end because it looked like we were heading off a cliff. You know, there were several big looming scheduling issues where people were moving and changing jobs and stuff like that. And so we knew we were at least going to have to take a break for a while and then probably change the day that we recorded. And there was just like life and family stuff happening that was threatening to squash the whole thing. And I don't know. So at the time, I was not putting sufficient energy into planning what we were going to do for a given episode. And then we would sit down and record. And sometimes it came out really well, but sometimes it just didn't. So
yeah, the one regret I have really of ending that campaign was the funny thing that was happening right at the end was Light of Dawn becoming like possessed by demons essentially. Or he was making like deals with the devil and had become like a different character as a result. And I thought that was going to be super funny to continue rolling with. I don't lament our decision too much to, you know, in the campaign where we ended it. Like, that's fine. That was the one thing that I was looking forward to, you know, continuing and exploring.
One thing that I found really helpful when I was getting into it was when Duncan said, hey, you know, first listen to this thing first, and so you kind of get a taste of it. And I don't know if we necessarily have that, you know, written down anywhere else. And that might be helpful for somebody coming in and not getting overwhelmed of like, oh god, 2 seasons? I can't do that.
That's a good point. Because
The
I
starter
think,
guide.
I'm pretty sure I told you to listen to the first downtime that we did, Shackles of Blood, first.
Yeah.
So it's a single episode, self-contained story, you know, and that was I think the epitome of just a group of people sitting down and having fun playing a casual game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you kind of get to know everyone, and then yeah. So that's a good point. Maybe if we could do something to indicate that if you're new, start here.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think if we ever get this website off the ground, that would be a good thing.
Oh, it's coming.
I'm sure.
I keep saying I'm going to do the work I need to do on it. So I have like... All right, so, well, I'll go ahead and tell you listeners what we're going to do. So we sat down on Squarespace and actually set up a website. And the idea, and this is Jesse's idea, was we're segmenting the website into individual web pages for each episode, where you can click on an episode and there's just a mood board style repository of like associated images and text and links and things like that. So, you know, for example, for a table talk right now, stuff that we talk about, we put a link down in the description, but that is sort of frozen in time. Like when we publish the episode, we have to finalize what we're going to put there. On the website, that could be, we can continue updating that. Mm-hmm. So we could talk about things, and then as those things change, or as other things occur to us, or maybe we follow up on one of those topics in a follow-on episode, we can keep updating that page to indicate that that's happening. Then on a page that's an episode of the podcast, or you know, like a proper session in the campaign or something, we can post like goofy AI art that we generate based on the topics, or art that Jesse has made, or little blurbs that we've written. We can post links and descriptions of the material like that inspired different aspects of the episode, whether it's the Whether it's like a module or a story that someone has written, we can link to their stuff, or, it's just associated media that we think is good for the mood or something like that, like, a movie that goes along with this really well. And that way, when you are listening to an episode, not only is everything sort of already referenced for you, but it gives you something to scroll through while you listen that'll put you in the mood. We're pretty far along on it. The pages are built out and have been for a while. We're slowly generating art. I'm slowly listening through the old table talks and listing the topics from each one, so we have things to go off of. The thing I still need to do is, for each episode, go in and link to the source material. But we've been a couple days away from publishing it for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, I got a little bit sidetracked with some surprise work travel. But
yeah. I have no such excuse. I just haven't done what I said I was going to do. I'm excited for it, though. I think it'll be interesting. And right now, I mean, you can look at it on desktop, but we have it optimized for mobile. So the idea is, like, you're probably looking at this on your phone.
Right.
It's a portrait screen, and you can scroll through. And as we're talking, you can see this stuff, and it can be like a living, breathing thing that we update over time. And there's a blog section so that we can, any like writing or other creative work that any of us do, we can put up on our own pages on here.
Yeah, I know that's something that interests me, because after I listen to every table talk or every session, I've always got something that, like, a thought that I think is interesting about it. And half the time I don't bring it up anywhere just because there's nowhere where it seems appropriate to bring it up, because it's not a conversation, it's just a thought. And that's something that I would love to be able to put out in, like, the blog portion of it, of like, hey, what's like Shepard's thought on table talk, whatever, or this session, or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think similarly, I'm a hobby level writer. I don't do it as much as I ought to, but up until now, I really haven't had anywhere to put that stuff. And now that I'm going to have a website for the first time, might as well put it there. And if people like it, cool. And if they don't tell me, because I don't want to hear that.
I've got no room for negativity in my life.
Yeah, I really only want to receive compliments.